Hello and welcome. I am your lovely host, Rin, from the Rin's Art Cafe. And as we know, this is a very spooky month, so be safe out there and enjoy the frights. Okay, so I'm here again with the other way, with Jude, and today we're going to talk a bit more about his art. As per usual, do not send hate towards anyone featured or mentioned in this video. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And while commenting, please keep it civil in the comments, guys. So, Jude, when did you start uh, discovering that you like art and you wanted to make it?
Um, well, I did actually like coloring colors was always a big thing for me. I enjoyed colors a lot. And I remember Fantasia watching that for the first time back in Holland when I was like, what, 4 or 5 years old. Uh, it really caught my attention just because it was such a phenomenal piece of music, colors, storytelling, all collaborated into one. So yeah, I wasn't very good at the beginning. There was a lot of very weirdly shaped doodles and whatnot, but nonetheless, I always like to keep at it. And it did go down for a while. Like I didn't really get it at first. How to express myself through art so much, and now I understand it a lot better, and I understand that there's a process to it. So I take my time with it, though. Yeah, I don't remember the age when you asked the question, but I know it was somewhere like the ages 7 is when I know that I was busy a lot with coloring. Um, and when I turned like 12 to 14, I wanted to draw more. Um, and now I do it more often, but on my own pace because I have realized, I've learned that if I really want to create something for myself, I'm not going to rush it. In no way will I do that because I just know that I'll make mistakes or I won't feel happy with it. And I tend to not feel happy with a lot of my work. So that's why I like to put it down for a bit and forget about it. And then months later come back and be like, I should have finished that. And then work on it a few months after that.
Mostly with like any medium that happens, like you might put some stuff out that you might not like at the beginning, or you might feel like, hey, this is not something that I feel. Maybe I can like try again, do something else. Uh,
Yeah.
like many, it's a natural process when creating stuff, actually, because you're also trying to make sense of your feelings, what you're feeling at that moment, and what you want to create according to your vision.
True. There's a few facets in which I experienced this. I mean, you can create art based on inspiration. When you look at it as a job, you cannot rely on those inspirational moments because you really need to produce if you want to be a full time artist. I think, and it's I guess common sense and somewhere it should be common knowledge that if you want to be a painter and you dub yourself a painter, you should at least spend like, I mean, not every day necessarily, but it could be every day. If you do 5 hours, just sit behind the canvas and either start or let something dawn on you, even if you're not feeling inspired. I think that's what it means to be a painter, uh, as like your job or something. But I think the term artist in that sense is also very loose because there are a lot of different ways people approach it. Some people have constant inspiration, and some people, like I just mentioned, they do it more like that. And those people that have that mix of like, I sometimes have inspiration, sometimes don't. You got to find a space in which you feel comfortable with what you do. Um, and also be very aware of what you're capable of and what you want to do. You cannot make promises to people who like, hey, I want to buy a painting from you. I will commission a work with you or from you. Then you also know you're committing to something more timely. And
Yes,
yeah,
yeah, stuff like this is time consuming, and especially like if you're gonna do it for like your work, and people commission stuff by you. Let's say I talked to this lady before on the show. Her name was Amber, and she did like the SFX stuff. You have to like work with a deadline, and sometimes when you have like the concept, it's you have to like get it done really soon, and then continue for the show, because especially if you're doing something like a series where they have to
Yeah,
like keep shooting stuff for like the special effects and stuff as well, that have to be edited in as well. It's a lot of stuff that you have to get done really fast, and like you said, you can't make certain promises if you know it won't be that. If you know you can't deliver on time.
exactly. Um, I mean, it's interesting that you do mention SFX because that's something I'm also working with. I do mostly, how do I say, uh, casualty portrayals. Um I, I like the Dutch naming better because it's a lot shorter, a lot more summarized. Slachtofferuitbeelding. In Holland, there's, how do I say, an organization that makes sure that those scenarios can be put out to train like paramedics, police, and like other people that need to know first aid and emergency response protocols. So we are also trying to implement that here in Suriname, and it is where I started with doing my makeup actually, and I enjoy it. So I kind of felt like, hey, I could do more with it, and I've gotten more creative. But sadly, I haven't had a lot of opportunities doing that a lot yet. I mean, it's mostly been one time a year that we have a scenario that we put out. But yeah, like you mentioned, just to because I've been digressing, excuse me.
No,
It,
it's okay. Because I
yeah,
didn't know that they were trying to do it in Suriname as well.
yes,
Because I think this is like
so
a
we are.
good learning tool.
It's
Then you don't for the beginners especially, because then you don't have to uh like for some people to like get
uh,
used to like crime scenes and stuff, or like an emergency situation, that you're not just like thrown in there, like as they say, like you're being thrown into like deep water, and how to deal with like the situation, but that you can like warm up to it more.
yes. I'm gonna have to mention you were cut off for a bit there. I don't know if you have the same experience with me on this side,
Yes.
but I do think I caught the essence of what you were telling. And yes, what you mentioned, it is very much to prepare the paramedics, the police, whoever it may be, the how do you say, uh, what's it, firefighters, for scenarios which can be traumatizing. And I have some of that, like this, the images of what I did are on Facebook. I have a business page under the name Blue. Let me, I can write that in the I don't know, we'll put that in the description
Oh,
afterwards.
you can actually screen share it if you like.
My computer is a bit laggy, so I'm actually trying to avoid that for that reason as well. Because I'm scared that it's gonna freeze up and blue screen me or something.
Oh,
Um,
because I if you want to, I can share it.
okay. Uh, but not to keep the show on a
Yeah.
pause here, as I was mentioning. Yeah, so what we do again, we do the victim portrayals of any scenario to prepare the people that need to be prepared for it. Um, this is something that actually started in England during World War II, or was it no World War II, because they were experiencing a lot of bombings from the German, and then they were they saw that they couldn't handle the workload. The medics, the nurses, they didn't know how to handle these situations, and these trainings started back then. And Holland is one of the countries that also very early on picked it up. I know in Germany it's something that is done. I got in contact with someone in Sweden who's doing this right now, and for them it's very new. So it's actually kind of funny to learn that it's not. How do I say? It's not something that even what we consider the first world does as a regular, and it makes sense because it's a very costly process. There's little that you can say that you physically get back from it, but what you immaterially get back from it is like experience and mental preparation. Also, because when you work with the right makeup artists and the people who are trained up in the right ways to portray the scenario correctly, if it's a cut on a hand, they're not going to be screaming that their leg hurts or something, you know.
Yeah.
But it can get more complicated than that. It can involve drugs. It can involve symptoms that you cannot see on the outside, and yeah, it does become a whole acting process and understanding of. So I feel like there's a big need to put this down worldwide, and that's something I hope to do. Uh, the only thing is, the people who do it, they cannot do it for free because even for them it costs a lot of money, and that's something where people are like, but this is something for like the state or whoever organizes the police, the ambulances, the firefighters in that country. And people look at it like it's not reasonable, it's probably not that effective, but that's not true. It's actually very effective, and it also helps a lot of people because you can use people from the public like to jump in as volunteers, as long as you have a good coordinator who can explain to them very thoroughly what they need to do and what they need to be aware of. uh, so how that comes back to like how you put that in a time frame, there's a lot of planning that goes on in it. You need to work with the people who are putting that scenario, the simulation training or examination out. You need to work with all of these different people, and you need to all work with one agenda because you cannot hold up the ambulance if there's like a managing or supervising, um, how do I say, personnel from
The
that department. You cannot be like, okay, well, we're going to have more delays and we need more meetings. No, they have to save lives. You have to realize that that's their job,
yeah.
and you don't really want to stand in the way of that. So when you're like, okay, we need to plan this, you need to make very concrete um, negotiations and very good planning to make sure that everything goes very punctually. Otherwise, it's going to be a whole mess with a lot of runouts and things that just you don't want, and it's going to reflect poorly on what you as a makeup artist would do are doing, and also for the ambulance services or the fire department or the police department because they're being held from their jobs in some degree. So yeah, it's tough, but
But
it's
like,
fun.
here's also the thing that I'm thinking of, like, because of like these trainings and such. Do people, when they're like choosing to go into this profession, do they really know what they're gonna go up against? Like, also like the things that they're gonna take with them mentally, because you're gonna have to deal with people lives. You're gonna see, even though it's like the training to prepare for that, you're going to eventually have to see. Not everybody's eventually going to make it.
Um, so that's something that I do not necessarily like. How do I say? Um, that's more also in the hands of the medical staff to kind of give you the, how do you say, the structure, what they want and what they want to see. If they want to make it very realistic, if somebody has, so to say, an internal bleeding, and there's a lot of tools we can use to simulate that. So we can make it so that a person has an internal bleeding, but we have to pace it out. Like maybe there is, the whole scenario usually gets cut down to like an hour. At least that's the maximum amount of time it's allowed to take. And within the hour, a lot of things can change. A person can go from being conscious to being unconscious and bleeding out. And so how do we do that? We have to put it in time frames, and we have to keep acting to the procedures, the protocols of what would develop within a certain patient. Because this is how the ambulance also practices their triage. They need to see who needs the priority, who needs the assistance right away, and who needs to go to the hospital first. So in these scenarios, as far as I've done the trainings, luckily no one has fake died, but and no one has really died either. So that's also a good plus. But yeah, if it were to be so that things could go wrong, because they can, we we relay the feedback that these actions were taken incorrectly. So we also need to understand a bit of what they're doing, and then we can give that feedback to the medical trainer, who will assess that and discuss that with the personnel, and then if it was an examination, tell them that they passed or did not. And that's stuff that I let out of my hands because I'm not a medical professional. I have some first aid knowledge, and I have a book that guides me in how to set down these scenarios. Um, but it's yeah, it's finding stability in some, like, how do, not stability, but how do I say, a foundation in something that's otherwise very intangible. And it's weird to say it's unnatural to put these situations down to some degree, because naturally speaking these things do happen. It's just,
Yeah.
even in nature, we consider it somewhat unnatural because it's not something you directly account for. It's not something you want to happen.
Because this is like more scripted,
Well, it's improvised. I mean, there's a
improvised.
script, there's a baseline, there's a script that you do follow. Like I mentioned, you need to have a good understanding of what the scenario needs to be, and from there on, you work with whatever would proceed or follow um, from such a scenario.
Yeah, because like, do you also like get like like in the script like what the medical personnel is supposed to do in that situation, so you can also like improvise on that, because like if they for instance do something that is not like the appropriate treatment for the
The patient,
scenario,
yeah.
and like, because I'm wondering like does like the coordinator that's supposed to see if they're doing the correct steps, do they like
So,
say just like stop and then let's see how other people reacted, or see who else like gave the right answer or the right treatment for that situation?
well, this is a good question because this also gives insight to on how many different levels this work can be done. Um, what's the name for this in English? I guess ERO, which stands for Emergency Response Officer. In Dutch, we know them as, uh, it's not exactly the same, maar BHV'er, bedrijfshulpverlener. Um, these are people who work in companies, and there's always a team in Dutch companies. At least there's a law that you need to have a team if the building has more than so many people that can handle these situations and take immediate action before the ambulance gets there or before the fire department gets there. Um, and their trainings go very differently than the trainings with the ambulance does, because with the ambulance there is no time to really say pause or stop. They want to train the whole scenario and they want to keep things flowing. So what that means in the difference is when we do it at a training centrum with EROs, when we're training EROs, we do have options to pause it or stop the scenario, um, and then we can adjust little details. But when it comes to the ambulance, you know I generally receive words that they don't want to stop it if anything is done wrong. Depending on what is going wrong at that point, you know generally nothing needs to happen, because wrong actions will do nothing, will not improve or worsen necessarily the condition at hand. They will just be a distraction. Actually, it will be the person who the medical trainee at that time will be taking the wrong steps, and they're wasting their own time, but that doesn't do anything for the life of the victim. Also, because we cannot do certain things, like if someone is to be choking, they're not going to cut your throat open and create an incision to put a tube to intubate you and to let you breathe again. I am so sorry. I have a very urgent call that I just remembered. Can I pick this
Oh,
up real quick? I'm very.
yes, then we can I need to see if I can quickly, yeah. So we're currently having a little break right now. So, as you guys heard, we're talking about a bit of like this training for professionals that are supposed to help in certain situations, like emergency situations. And as you guys remember, I actually talked to a few people who want to go towards this more helping people route in like these emergency situations. And I actually didn't know that these things like existed in Suriname. Like, I perhaps because maybe before I didn't really ask these questions, or yeah, just like purely by accident, I ended up getting to know about this stuff. But I actually do like what I've gotten to learn, what I've gotten to know so far. Is there anybody in the stream that wants to ask questions? Perhaps somebody wants to come on and say something as well while we wait on Jude. Like, I can, if you want to join, I can send the invite link in the chat until Jude has returned and gives me the A-OK to let him back in.
Ah, yes. I'm
Yes.
very sorry about that, guys. That was a phone call that I had to take. I completely forgot about that. But I also thought it would happen a bit earlier. Shout out to my boy, Led Movies. I'm sorry, I just wanted to do that real quick because he messaged the way back. All right,
Yeah.
we're all up to date now.
Yeah, like I was gonna ask, I was asking like some of the viewers if they wanted to like hop on and say something, or like
Oh, yeah,
had
definitely. I
if they
would.
had like a question like in the meantime.
Guys,
But
please come with
like no,
questions.
like nobody is like sending stuff in, so yeah,
Slow crowd, slow
we'll just
crowd.
leave that be and let's continue until somebody
I
like
got,
says something.
sure, I got one for them though. It's like, who do y'all think we are today? What are we dressed up as? These are the hints. They're
I just
crucial.
see like two people watching the stream,
That's
and like
fine. Hopefully, I mean, I this is the first time like I did promote it on every social media account I had, um, but I feel like it's just a bit of a slow no, October because you know,
oh, we got someone. So these
yeah,
things exist. I think this thing is like a little late. Like when we're talking, it uh it like shows up later for people, and then they comment. There's like a
uh,
delay.
that might be
These
part.
things exist in yeah. She was talking about like the training, because people didn't really think that training existed for people in Suriname, because as you mentioned, it was like uh a bit new as well. Like some countries just started doing it as well.
Yeah, in Sweden, which again, it did surprise me, and yeah, we actually have someone here, the director. I don't know if I should mention too much about him because I didn't talk to him about this beforehand, and
Like
I swore I didn't really expect to know
for
this.
reasons, do not mention his name or like give any information, but like more just related
Okay,
um to the story,
yeah,
because of like certain privacy reasons and such.
perfect. I can do that. No worries.
Yeah.
But yeah, the director of Surkat, the Surinamese Central Ambulance Service, um, he he has experience with these trainings, and he knows that these are very valuable trainings to give, just because they do make such a difference for the practice itself. And I got into contact with him through my friend who is watching with us today. Um, and yeah, because of that, we've been doing this now almost like, yeah, every year, one scenario. And we do want to do more because I think, there's a lot that can be achieved with this. It's more than just making sure that your personnel is up to date and following the correct procedures, but there's also a level of understanding and respect that develops. I always look for volunteers or people who are willing to partake within these scenarios, and then I coordinate them to be able to do it. And from these experiences that they share with me, they always get like more of an understanding, and see more reason why they should call an ambulance sometimes, which is very important, I think, because it's saving
Yeah,
lives.
because
And
yeah, but like I'm not sure. Sometimes people don't really like call like the ambulance. Like they sometimes decide to go themselves because there might be a life or death situation happening right there. But that itself could also like implicate like um certain things that could follow from that, because like people from like the paramedics, the ambulance, like they have, like she mentioned, like the training. So uh if like something happens and they're like in the ambulance, like they're actually gonna get like
well,
the correct amount, like
I mean, that's
the
something.
response that they need.
Beyond that, it's
uh
more just understanding why sometimes it might take the ambulance some time to get there, or why they might do certain actions. Some things may be experienced as painful, and even in our training, sometimes it does get painful because they practice certain things that they do normally, like squeezing your thumb to see if you're still conscious, and that hurts a lot. Not gonna lie. And when you're acting, however, they do realize that there's always some giveaway, and there's always some precautions we take, because under no circumstance are they allowed to actually apply IV to your body while training. That's gonna not be healthy at that point. I mean, it could create too much, how do I say, moisture or water into your body, or too much salt or too much sugar, and those are things that you cannot. I mean, your body's naturally balanced, if we're speaking in the natural terms, so you don't want to disrupt the balance of your natural processes. So when they do these trainings, they always use the plastic needle and they just stick it on you. So there is an understanding from them as well that it's a training, and at that point they won't practice some of the things they do normally, like squeezing on your thumb extremely hard to make sure you stay awake. But they will do it because they do want to test you, and they do want to see, like, is this person supposed to be completely non-responsive? Are they unconscious right now, or are they fading in and out of consciousness? And is this something that would, in this procedure, in this scenario, be something that I need to do? And in that sense, they do need to check their boxes. And you, who's being trained on the patient, you need to be aware and kind of take a mental note of what happens, so that again afterwards you can give the feedback to the trainer, and they'll be like, okay, that was good, or they weren't supposed to do that, and then everything proceeds from there again. But yeah, all of this to a little digression from
yeah,
creative projects that take time, and where you have to know that it takes time and dedicate your time to it. Yeah, these are the things that you in no way can you work around it. I mean, as a creative, if I work in movies, perhaps I want to, and this is actually why my friend joined me today. I hope is because we try to do this. We've done some in the past, but it does allow more freedom when you're working creatively. If it's like a big production company, I assume that the producer will have a much different idea, because they're sticking in all the money and whatever, so they want to see a product by a certain time. But there is a lot more leniency in the creative industry, because to some degrees there's understanding, and there's different levels of perfectionists that you will encounter, and some people understand that if you are just as perfectionistic as they are, that you need the time to get it done right. and other people won't care and they'll still put pressure on you. And sometimes, like as you mentioned, when doing special effects, you'll turn in some sketches of like, hey, can we do this? Because you're not gonna. I mean, if you can, you can do the whole mold right away, but it's more reasonable to do sketches and be like, which concept do you want to go with? It's also something I love a lot, concept art. And then from that concept, we'll put down the physical image, mold the physical image of what it should be, and if that's not what it should be, you can make little tweaks after that. But it's going to be hard to do everything from the ground up again because it's a very timely process. And there's a lot of different materials you can use. Like gelatin is one of the most common molds still today. It works really well because it's very easy to mold. You can reshape it multiple times.
It's
Um,
also
and
cheap, right?
it is cheap. You can just buy it at the store. It's all you need is to buy those little gelatin packets or a big one, preferably a big one if you're going to do a big mold. And you need to mix it with another ingredient that I kind of forgot the name right now, but you can buy that at the pharmacist. And then after a while it will harden into a type of, how do I say, I guess not necessarily clay because it does harden.
Oh yeah,
Um,
like gelatin is like made from like the bones of like animals and such. So like the collagen, like when
yeah,
when it
collagen.
like
Yeah,
hardens, it's like gonna be like one of those silicone stuff, but like a lot.
exactly.
Um, I've seen like gel like it's like Jello basically, but like a
It
lot
is.
harder.
Yes, because you put the, how do I say, the ratio in which you apply the two ingredients, the main ingredients, that determines how much it will harden, if I'm not mistaken. One thing I should mention, I don't really work with gelatin, and I'm still looking for good products here in the tropics, because this is actually an interesting thing. Working in a tropical climate with these temperatures and just any high temperature environment is tough because gelatin will melt.
Will melt.
Yes, you that's why it's also reshapeable. Even after you make a mold, you have that piece and you're like, okay, this is a good color for what I want to do next. Well, you can just melt it down in the microwave or with some hot water, and then you can mold it up again. But
Yeah.
that, again, in a high temperature environment, is a bit of an issue because you will need to make sure that they're stored at the right temperature. And then when it comes into like environments like these, you have sweat and other, you know, moisture in the air that could also harm the product, which means you need a few more spares, or it might not be usable at all.
Oh, here's the thing I forgot to tell you. A while like 2 years ago, I actually like from Sweetheart the store, or like it's now called Intertoys, I guess.
Yeah,
Uh, it I bought like the liquid latex. I still have like the bottle, but it's like still inserted. But I'm not sure if that one actually works better with like these temperatures.
so the beauty of liquid latex is it does work here very well, because the thing is it actually hardens in cold temperatures, liquid latex. So it stays more fluid, but as long as it comes into contact with air and in the open, it will harden, and yeah, it will stay that shape. It doesn't liquefy after that anymore. The only issue with it is it's not as sturdy. You don't have, how do I say, you don't get the same result as you get from gelatin. It is a bit tougher to work with because you need to work really fast. It really hardens quickly, regardless of temperature when it just comes to in contact with air. And yeah, um,
Yeah,
oh
because I've
yeah,
seen
the
it being
last.
used more for like painting, like if you like make stuff, for instance, like horns or let's say Thanos' glove, for instance,
It's a
if you're
very
like
good
gonna make something
finishing.
like that.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
very good finishing product.
Or skin.
Skin even, yes. See, but that again, like I mentioned, the moment like it comes into contact with air, the outside layers are what start drying first, and that's the biggest issue because once that outside layer has dried, it doesn't change shape anymore, and you cannot melt it back down in any way that I know of, as far as I know right now. Um, And then there's also the issue that you have in climates like these, beyond the fact that gelatin is, or sorry, that latex is something that quite a number of people are allergic to.
Oh,
Um,
yes.
there's also the issue that when it doesn't breathe in any way. Sure, gelatin doesn't either, but it really, how do I say, encapsulates whatever surface you put it on. It's just a piece of plastic with no oxygen going through it. So if you start sweating under it tends to get very itchy. It can come loose very easily in that sense, and in that way you kind of start seeing it as a bit of a hassle product because it becomes this whole hassle of making sure that it sits right, it stays right, that it's still wearable. It's but
Like,
it's still a good
not to
product.
mention like those 16 hours of makeup that you have to do, for instance, like for a
Yes.
scene, and then the actor has to like stay under all that silicone, gelatin, latex.
Well, not silicone,
For,
latex, yes.
yeah,
I mean,
latex.
I
Yeah,
really wouldn't put
latex.
silicone, I think.
So,
I thought about it in the
uh,
past. You can put it in small portions, but
yeah.
it's because it's a synthetic product, whereas latex is largely a natural product still. Um, those chemical and hardening agents can be more reactive on the skin. So that's why silicone can be put in very small proportions, but I wouldn't recommend
Because
it
I
in
did know like
larges.
about food grade silicone. I think that's like a lot better for compared to the others, I think. Like if you're gonna
I
like work with like skin or your body.
I need to check up on that. I never actually heard of food grade silicone, and I'm
Oh
interested.
yeah, it's like I'm not sure if you like saw it, but like the silicone molds for like cake, cupcakes and such.
Oh,
Like that's the one that they use for that.
oh yeah, yeah. I mean, I think that has to do, like I said, the hardening agents, because that's the main thing that, or whatever other agents they put. Because in industrial silicone, you do find those things, and in uh, a molded cup, I don't think it's there anymore. So you don't need to worry
Oh.
about it.
But I also seen like art and stuff being done with products like resin, for instance. Have you worked with that before?
Resin. I have not worked with it before. There's a lot of different types of resin, though. So this gets to a very technical aspect of things, where you really need to specify which resin you mean.
Yeah, I guess like I don't know the name specifically, but you have like I know you have like a few, but like I saw videos of people like putting stuff in resin. Like they don't say exactly what resin it is. They just say, "Oh, I'm gonna encapsulate this action figure in resin, and then I'm gonna add like some sparkly stuff in it as well, or I'm gonna make dice out of this resin."
Okay. I mean, personally, like I mentioned, I don't have a lot of experience with it, and I need to. I guess I need to look it up a bit more. I do know that there's, if I'm not mistaken, there's like epoxy resin that people use to do the transparent or the how do you say, colored, make it colored, um, and you can make that, use that, if I'm not mistaken, for like tabletop counters. All of these things are like very specific products that I don't know enough about because I don't work with them yet. I haven't had a reason. I haven't done the research on it yet. I mean, when you really look at like artistically or even functionally what kind of products we have nowadays, what kind of materials are on the market, it's a lot. It's the people who are most aware of like the greater half of it, I think, are in like architecture and building, because that's where a lot of the functional products come up, and kind of take the stage, and people are researching like what works better, what works best, and why. And then there's also, on the other hand of things, there's the food industry, which yeah, also has a very long list of ingredients of what they can use, and especially molecular cooking, you learn how to extract calcium and other very small elements or molecules to get it more pure to be able to create what you want. However, that's all edible. Doesn't mean that it's friendly to everyone because allergies or they pop up
Oh, you
wherever
cut
and
off, but like
whenever.
yeah, you actually cut like a bit off, and
Uh,
then yeah, I'm sorry. Like like I think like something has to do
or
with like
should
your
I backtrack?
connection. No, like I got the gist of what you said. Like, people would be like allergic to it because like food and stuff. But like, to go
Yeah,
back on like the molecular cooking, I've seen like different videos on that, and like people creating like these. Like I didn't know that it was like a biscuit or like tomato sauce or something like that, because it was like clear, like both of them were clear, and they were like the plating itself is also like some form of art, and like you
definitely.
completely like rearrange this thing, and it's like, oh, this is, for instance, like an apple pie, but then you see like a few couple of space orbs and like uh something shiny, like that kind of looks like glitter or something. Like I'm just like saying stuff, by the way. I'm just like
No, I hear you.
what it
It's,
like looks
it's,
like in the video or something.
but in summary, it's what I was trying to point out with this spectrum analysis, so to say, is that on one hand you have the industrial products, and the reason why we research, how do I say, materials for industrial purposes, things that you cannot use in your body, you cannot use on your body, you don't want it around your body necessarily, you just want it in buildings and whatnot. And then on the other hand, like the far extreme is the cooking, stuff that you can put in your body, that you can keep around your body and whatnot. Uh, and in between those two, there's also like a medical aspect where you have things where people are like, you could eat that, but I honestly wouldn't recommend it. It's just not that tasty or that fun to digest. And that's where, that's also the beauty of research and art, because when you research all of this stuff, materials, you find that sometimes things are created in weird places. Like sometimes there's an architect or like a builder who makes a new material, but they have no purpose for it. Like they thought they were trying to make a glue, or they were trying to make a new way to mold, like how I say, what's it, cardboard or whatever. And then it turns out like it's too weak, too feeble, or it's just not what it should be for what they need. But then a chef comes along and is like, "What did you make this of?" And then they'll be like, "Yeah, this, and this," and then they'll point out like, "Oh, so it's edible," and it's like, it is edible. And being a chef, you'll likely take a bite of it and try to figure out like, "Hey, how else could I apply this?" And in that sense, like on the other hand, those things happen too, where someone who's from a creative part might make something that they cannot use and be like, well, this is pretty useless. But then someone else points out to them, like, yo, that's actually very functional for the building industry or whatnot. I'm not saying this happens all the time, but it is something that has happened in our history. And it's very interesting to see how creativity and science, yeah, they parallel and then they collaborate and then they converge, diverge. It's interesting to see how that happens.
Yeah, because like you don't necessarily like in science and such, when you're like discovering and researching stuff, you don't have eureka moment. You have like, that's funny.
Yeah,
And then you have like people coming in and they're like looking at it and they're like, I can use it for this, I can use it for that, or
yeah,
what'll happen if I do this, like the creative mindset. That's like why creativity, I believe, is important. It is something that has been developing in humans as long as we can remember, because it helped us survive for so long. For instance, you
definitely.
need creativity to like build a shelter, and you have to
Yes,
keep innovating to get away from the elements and predators, for instance. So I
yeah.
think that's kind of like where it started. And
That
building tools, especially.
yeah. There's all of this comes together. It's funny. Like we've made this world so large in a sense with all the knowledge, and then when you boil it back down, it's just like, it's still all one world. It's just the one tiny little thing, and it's all using the same things that have been present forever. Um, but this being a digression of, I guess, like materials, and before that some other things. Let me see, where do I want to draw back to a bit. Um, was I'm sorry, I kind of lost it right now. This just
Oh,
because it becomes really expansive with all these different things in there. Oh yeah, science, right? This is the one thing I wanted
yes.
to mention of that. Even in creative processes, when you create something, you'll always look back on your steps and see how you can improve it. But there's also kind of like the troubleshooting, the trial and error testing, and making sure of its applications and whatnot. And these things, again, they go very hand in hand, regardless of what the topic is, whether it's creative or more scientific. You do need to make sure that what you're presenting is what it is, and not just because you're saying it or selling it as such. I mean, lead, for example, is a good example of a material that was commonly used in paint because it helps keep the color very bright and vibrant. But we have also noticed that quite a number of children have experienced detriments back in the 60s from eating or chewing on their red truck, the red
Red
tin
toys.
truck, yeah,
Yeah.
or whatever color it was. But the fact is, it was painted with lead, and next thing you know, they show up all these different symptoms, and people are like, "Well, I guess I didn't want that for my child. I just wanted them to enjoy the toy." So
Yeah.
that's when science does take an overhand, and you really need to trust in what is being researched. And you also need to be able to trust those people that they're researching it correctly.
Yeah,
Yes.
because like back then, like people used to use mercury to cure stuff. Like people thought mercury cured syphilis, uh, arsenic, like plates and stuff made from arsenic, like was like made stuff better. Like people like ate tomatoes or on like plates of arsenic or something, and they thought that's why people died, like because of the tomatoes. And
Yes.
there was like yeah, the lead, like um that's why I think why some people like are a bit like concerned about like the water in the Netherlands, or like there were like a few ads that came out, or like public service announcement because some places still had like the old pipes, and people were like telling them to get like different ones, because yeah, it's kind of effed up if like you're the kids like chew on that stuff, and
And
you're just
something
gonna end up with
happens.
more issues that
Exactly. And this is where I do really feel like creativity has, in that sense, a certain limit. And unless you start approaching it like a scientist or a researcher who makes sure that whatever they've made is 100% what it is. Of course, there's also like the scientific conditions that you keep in mind, that maybe the temperature or this or that, there's outside influences that can change things. In that sense, there's still a lot to be researched. But that shouldn't keep you from creating or doing art. Also, because nowadays a lot of the products have been tested, they have a certain standard. We have figured out that lead is not good in paint, unless it can be like on a building and nobody touches it, But I don't think they do that
nobody
anymore
chews
either.
on the buildings. Yeah.
you know, this is why rules are installed, and all the little details that follow whatever prevailed before that. Because yeah, I mean, again, it comes back to these three major trees of humanity, with creativity on one hand and the full research industrial on the other. But then in between, and this is the beauty of doctors, and this is kind of why I like, yeah, I have a lot of respect for them, because they get a bit of both in that sense, because they're working with, I suppose I could say, the human is central in their image of understanding things, and they have to take things from that perception from the human body. And it's doctors who then discover, like, yo, it's not the tomatoes that are making you sick, it's the plates that are making you sick.
Yeah.
It's generally in something in that line, because they then follow the pattern, do the research, they trace it to the criminal. And yeah, the artist is less likely to do that. They it would take some time, or they might even get sick and die before that even happens because they were constantly in contact with the substance and they didn't even realize it. And the industrial or the further research that's looking for the materials, they might find those things and then they'll classify it under something and they'll lock it in a box and stow it away. And you'll find research papers here and there on the materials that are available, but those are not accessible to everyone. That's something that I would like to change in my lifetime, our lifetime actually, that we can find a lot of this research. But sometimes there's good reason why it's not, because understanding molecules, understanding chemistry and physics allows you to create things that some people don't want you to create. And it's not for bad reason. It's because reactions can be explosive, and that's
Yeah.
just dangerous.
Like we did get something about that at school, and like they like do sometimes like the experiments and stuff, but I don't think people should just be doing whatever with that knowledge.
No, I mean, I do find a very good, how do I say, it's a very good foundation to have an understanding of these things and really
Yes.
understand it, not just be like, oh, I know this and that, fun facts, haha. No, like understand the foundation of where it begins, and this is something that will always be true, is that a good foundation um, serves is like the baseline of everything. Um, it's just yeah, and there's I have a lot to say on that, but I don't want to digress too much into
Yeah.
my visions of how I think things could or should be. It is a lot of who I am, and it's a lot that I try to reflect in my art, though. So this is why I didn't mind going into this topic and talking about these things. Admittedly, again, I don't understand everything to the depths because, again, it's a very big tree of knowledge, and a lot of people accept the fact that they can only go up one branch and then they can get all the way to the extent of that branch, and then from that point of view they can look back at the tree and be like, huh, now I can look at the tree from this branch and tell people about the things I've experienced, seen, learned while traversing the branch out. But I try to stay close to the trunk of the tree, because I think that too many people go out on the branches, or not too many people actually. There's not enough of them, to be honest. It's just that once you go down such a road, you always learn to adapt a new perspective. Sometimes you can, some people have the capability of broadening their minds and being able to sit on multiple branches at once, but not everyone has that ability. Um,
Like to
and
create the bigger picture, like look at the bigger picture, for instance, or get a better understanding of how things actually work.
yeah, this is one that I find hard to talk about, how things actually work and what the bigger picture is, because this is also a topic that is very divided between humans. A
Yeah, because
lot
it
because
still
of
has to do with the perspective.
perspective. It has to, nature and nurture, all these little elements that contribute to how you perceive the world in the end. And that's also in a constant shift unless you are unevolving. Um,
Because like this
at
is
which
like
point,
the thing that I was thinking about, like so how many people know morality is actually subjective, it's not objective, so it can change depending on the cultural context. But like if something actually happens, even though we have like our own perceived like reality that experiencing right now, if something happens, like how does that thing know that it like happened in that certain way? Because there's like so many things that happen, everybody can like say a different thing. Like for instance, when you like see a movie and you see like a box sitting in like the middle of the street, like the movie's like made of the out of the box in the middle of the street, but everybody's like gonna look at it differently. Like people are gonna notice like, hey, it's getting wet through the rain, or like, hey, it's like it's a sad vibe, or other people are just gonna say, oh, it's just a box. Like, but like what is like the concrete thing that is like there? Because you're not really gonna know, because you can't escape your mind just to look at it. Like, I'm sorry,
So
it's like a bit confusing, but it's like a
it's a,
thing that I was like thinking about because like the
I do
nature and
hear
nurture,
you.
you can't really escape it. Like it will still have like a certain effect on you, like and your
Yes.
emotions, your like a better term, hormones or
Uh,
whatever. It affects the way you look at things.
well, there's so much to say on it, and this is also, I guess, somewhere a lot of psychology. I mean, you if you know Maslow's hierarchy, triangle hierarchy thing, it gives you good understanding of what humans need before self-actualization happens or can happen. Um, Nature and nurture is a very big part of that. At least nurture, especially, I think. In nature, my cousin always refers to it as the reptile brain. Humans do have certain instinctive thoughts, um, which we usually use, like a reptile, to protect ourselves, to keep ourselves sustained. Um, but this is also a very unforgiving part of ourselves that it's focused on survival, and there's a lot that comes in between that. In our modern world, we don't even need to rely on the reptile brain that much anymore. It's crazy that we still do because of the conditions we create for ourselves in this world. um, so yeah, I feel like this is this whole psychology subject topic thing, and it's hard to touch on because there's still a lot of theories. A lot isn't seen as concrete yet, and it's hard to pinpoint it because you know we haven't really done that from what I understand. Even hormones, to some degree, are still like a theory. Um, Here and there, dopamine, serotonin are names we have labeled onto these things to understand it a bit better, and it's stuff that we study and follow. But I still have heard from some psychologists, psychoanalysts, or doctors that it's still theory. They don't completely comprehend it, um, which is understandable. I mean, this world is extremely complex. Uh, there's so many thoughts that we can chase, that we can pursue to make a better understanding of our reality. And the thing we want the most is to comprehend it. I think because with comprehension, like understanding something allows you to look at it and be like, okay, I get it. I understand why this and this. But comprehending is being more than just like, I get it. It's also being like, but now we can do this and we can lead to this outcome. And that's a tough one. And this kind of then, to draw back to that reptile brain reference, a lot of us don't completely comprehend that complete, how do I say, that complete subject, because we comprehend it within our perception, and then we see the moves we can make. And in that sense, a lot of us look for ways to benefit themselves, and somewhere you have to within our reality. And that's also something that I keep trying to focus on in my art, to find like, how can I put this down so that others could understand it possibly. And these are paintings that I'm always like a little worried about. They're the ones I work on really hard. I take a lot of time to put them down. Um, it's also because a lot of my wisest or smartest friends, I'm not sure if they're wise, but I'm definitely sure they are smart. They disagree with me on a lot of these things because they don't see the reality the way I do, and I just can't see it the way they do. But we both agree on certain facts that we're like, this is the way it is. Like, hey, do you know the cosmic joke?
I do not know that. I might have heard of it, but I do not know it.
I This is something that I wrote down recently. It's a very good one to keep in mind, and it's also something that I think about a lot when working on my art, because it just brings so much insight. Like the cosmic joke, reality is what you see and understand. Fact is what it is without emotion. In effect, information without emotion. An opinion is experience plus information. Ignorance is an opinion lacking, or as I see it, denying information, maybe. Prejudice is an opinion lacking the information. That's kind of how I see lacking more as prejudice. And stupidity is an opinion that ignores a fact. I hope I didn't paste that out too quickly, that you can kind of like process the words. So that is the cosmic joke, as I understand it. And what that means to me is that, you know, you just have to understand that reality is what you see and understand. And everyone will have their own opinion. The facts will remain the same regardless of how others think of it. And some people will always choose to be ignorant, or they will be prejudiced, or just plain simple stupid.
Yeah,
But
that's
I
what I
think,
kind of like thought about
yeah,
with like the thing about the box. Like the box is the fact and everything else around is like the prejudice and the opinions and such.
yeah, yeah, exactly. It works. Uh, but there is the one thing I should mention that I deny the right to call someone stupid almost. I mean, I definitely do experience people in my daily life and sometimes myself being stupid, but I don't believe that that is a fact that we should accept as like, I find that very shortcoming and blinding sometimes, and I understand why. And these are again my smartest friends, they accept that people can be stupid, and I understand why they do, because it's going to be too much of a hassle to be dragged back by the people that are stupid in your perception. However, my perception is that it's stupid to think of others as stupid. Little tweak in there, you do need some common sense and logic
Yeah.
sometimes. You need to understand that fire, no, regardless of what you do, fire will burn. That is
Fire
just the
bad.
fact. Not even bad. It's just that is the fact of fire. It burns. You can extinguish it and it will stop burning, but then you will have no more fire. Such is fact. Water will always be wet. It's a stupid thing to say, but just to understand the element, a property of water is that it makes things wet. A property of water is that it's fluid. You can freeze it, but then it becomes ice. You can yeah, evaporate it, and then it becomes moisture. But you know, when understanding these things, like I guess like these are things you need to understand and need to understand without emotion. Um, Thank you, by the way. And yeah, there are people that still deny this, regardless of everything they've learned, seen, and taught. And I guess in some sense, you can regard those people as stupid. But I also feel like we should give people the time to get there and let them be confronted with the reality. And that's something that takes a lot of different paths, because people try to protect each other. Sometimes they try to manipulate or control each other. And some of us just want to guide people. And I kind of see like that's the one of the greatest things you can do, is just find the opportunity to guide people. Now you cannot guide everyone, and you will always have to understand that there is a certain level to which you guide people, because they still need to be their own people. People are also very lazy. That's just a natural fact of our being. Our brain is centered on being able to couch lock and receive all the sensations and what's the word? Prikkelinga? Ah, I
The
always lose it.
sensations.
Yeah, yeah. I
The
guess sensation is just the
yeah.
right word. From the outside world, we like to be couch locked and be able to observe it like that and not have to put out any energy, because that's again our brain is focused on preserving energy. It's also why we store fat in our bodies, and all these physical things come to it. And again, the picture becomes very large. So
Like this makes me think about like the one of the 11 rules of uh say the Satanic Church, I think what it's called, of or Satanism, where it was like do not give anybody like advice unless they ask. Like if you want to like help people grow, let them come to you, for instance. Or else
Yes.
you'll go into like that part of manipulation because like a bit more. But like for instance, I was like thinking about that thing with manipulation. I don't know, but like we kind of all do it, but like not with like the bad intent per se.
So yes, like I said, I mean, there is this that I guess this is a little story I want to tell, or I don't know if it's. Let me make it into a story. So Jimmy is sitting in a hotel room. He's 3 years old. His mother is washing his baby sister in the bathroom, showering his baby sister, and there's a candle lit on the table. There's a newspaper beside that candle. Now, Jimmy being like, what did I say? Three? Okay, yeah, three, sure. Let's make it a smart toddler. He's experimental. He knows that these two things can create a certain reaction with each other, and he's willing to try that. Now, his mother has told him about this and, has explained to him the bad effects of what it could happen. But, there's all this curiosity within little Jimmy. So he tries it anyway. And then he runs up to his mother, and that's the part where he runs up to the new burning newspaper now to his mother, and the way she reacts, I think, is very definitive of whether she's guiding him or manipulating him, because there's a multiple number of reactions she can give to little Jimmy at this point. She can use that fire to hurt him, to teach him an immediate lesson, but that goes very much to manipulation and abuse. But manipulation is abuse. She can also just take the right actions and extinguish the fire very simply, and then find a way to talk to him, scold him, approach him, and make him understand that these actions, reactions, and consequences all have to do with how he approaches what he sees as life. It becomes hard because guiding, what I'm trying to say is that guiding is a lot harder than manipulating people when it really comes to it, because you take a lot more time, a lot more effort, and you have to leave the room for people to create their own experiences. That doesn't always mean it's going to be the best of lives, because I don't know how it works, but people will be prone to do very stupid things in any time, in any place. And when we manipulate these people and box them down into a little corner, we make it easier to control them. And, we can go into conspiracy theories about why coffee and sugar is legal, despite those being very addictive products, and why marijuana or mushrooms are illegal. Well, while the irony of that is like, these are not products you should probably use on the daily. They probably definitely not, I think, but they have certain reactions within your physiological chemistry that can be very eye opening. And yeah, they all work differently for everyone. So I'm not promoting this in any way. What I'm more trying to say is that there is a lot out there, and this is the conspiracy story that I wanted to tie into, but I kind of lost myself when I went too deep into the details. But the way our government goes about our lives, the way they set up the rules, and this differs per country. Sometimes it doesn't, but you have to
Because
trust in that, and sometimes you need to be able to have your own freedom.
yeah,
That's
it's
the
like
end
I
of it.
have I had like three things to say about this. There were like a few videos that I watched, like with the kids and like the whole element of danger. You know how the parks are like jungle gyms and stuff are made like kid friendly, kid safe. There's like a whole other thing that people used to have that was like a bit more dangerous. They had like hammers and like nails and like some wooden planks and stuff, like stuff that was like a bit more dangerous, and like the kids at were actually like learning like, hey, uh this is like dangerous, I could get hurt, but like they were kind of like learning a bit from like experience, so they were actually like learning how to be a bit more careful, a bit more safe.
Hmm.
The uh which was I which I think was actually like and they also had like an experiment where they had like babies walk over like a fake ledge. There was like this plastic thing, and like at a certain age, they were able to spot out the danger. But like certain children, like that were a lot younger, babies that were a lot younger or like premature, couldn't really like spot the difference. The You guys can like probably like look up stuff on this, like the coffee and the sugar thing. uh, like the sugar thing I know was like done because of this whole scientist, and he was like a lot more recognized as like famous, and the dude who said, hey, sugar is actually causing like more of these health issues, because then you had like stuff with like heart health and stuff that followed after, and then they began blaming fat, which like the naturally occurring fat is actually good for you. And like the other thing with the weed and like the other drugs, the one with the mushrooms, there was like a theory of like it actually helped human evolution, but like, until people started preserving them in honey and then alcohol, and it turned into alcohol, and that actually destroyed human civilization. And the whole thing with weed, people actually like used it also for so many years, like the mushrooms, but like because of the certain things that happened in the U.S., it got associated with uh, people from Mexico and such, and tied more to racist stuff, and that eventually began spreading its way across of the over the world. And this is like the thing. You had like the prohibition on alcohol and such, which actually ended up making these things a lot stronger, a lot more worse, a lot more detrimental to human health.
I mean, yeah, the thing is, it's a very expansive topic on its own. From the three things you mentioned, let me just see. The first one, I don't know so much about with the fat and the sugar. I just know that sugar is super addictive, and you know, in any way, it's profitable because it is addictive. Um, the next thing you mentioned was the drugs, no?
Yeah,
Uh,
the drugs, because
Mushrooms and whatnot.
there's like a system in the human body, like a cannabinoid system, that already like makes like some of the stuff naturally, and like when you like take the stuff as well, it like just adds more to that. And like I found it like I didn't know about this, like uh especially like if you're like younger, you like hear people say, yeah, don't use this, don't use that, but like why do we have like the system in our body? There's like, but like this is a
Well,
plant that has been like growing with people.
see, this
Uh,
is the one. This is the one where like I mentioned before, we don't understand hormones as much as we like to pretend. Are you still following me? Because I see my
yeah,
okay, because everything is freezing up on my PC. But then I'll keep talking. Um, but yeah, this is the place where we really don't understand what actually happens. I mean, sure, we can kind of trace the brain activity with like different meters, and we see things happening, and we try to make sense of that with labels. But that's the thing, we make sense of it with labels. We haven't fundamentally discovered what it is, what it does, how it works. It's also the reason why we still cannot, completely diagnose psychopaths or, those very fine things that we experience within our human reality. It's so big. And it's something that I'm very careful on touching on because I am not the professor of this topic. I just go by my own experiences and what I observe from the outside world and what I learn. And I try to learn as much as possible because I think that is one of the baselines of our lives is we are here on this planet. We have the opportunity to learn. So go and do that. And one of the most important things I want to pair with this sentence is also something that I don't know if this is still part of the cosmic joke, but it's definitely something that pairs with it. Is what is the wisdom of enlightenment?
I almost want to say like nothing, because like there's like no like I'm sorry, but like I don't know why I was thinking of like sometimes when like people say like when you're supposed to meditate, you're like not really like supposed to think of anything. You're supposed to like let everything go. And like I see like enlightenment as like just being in like there in the moment, but like also having nothing.
I That's an
Or
interesting answer. I
enlightenment
did
is
not
also
expect that.
or like enlightenment could also be like suffering, like as they say in like Buddhism. And there's like the cycle of suffering, but like through
Okay.
suffering and through pain, you get to learn stuff.
Definitely true. I guess that is sort of the answer, because the answer I was given at that time when this question was asked to me was, um, the wisdom is there is no such thing as enlightenment. It's all just experience, and that makes a lot of sense. And that's also, it's something that I heard very long ago, and the cosmic joke, and this is what I was reminded of quite recently. But it's something that I've always, kept close to me and tried to understand things through. And I kind of started, I have these really weird ideas of how the world could actually be. Like, what if it, um, take the premise that the world is a simulation, or that we're actually going backwards in time, that our chronological experience as we see it is, we see it, we're going to the future, but we're actually going to the past, in the sense that in the end of all futures, everything is done, said, and has been created. And therefore, the ending is at the beginning, where it all kind of goes back to like where it started. You it's hard
Because
to
like
think about.
it like makes me think of like Minecraft because like you already have like a few certain set of things that already exist in there. So you cannot escape that essentially. Like every like idea that can and will be like I wouldn't say like it's written somewhere. I say like the rules for it already exist that it could happen, but like because we haven't discovered it yet, that doesn't mean that it doesn't exist.
Exactly, that's kind of it. That is kind of it, because what my point was trying to be when I proposed this thought like such. It's that, again, at the end of time, at the end of reality, at the end of space, time, space, reality, everything that there is, you know, everything is there. It's all created. It's all been or was. Whereas in the beginning, there wasn't a lot. I mean, supposedly it remains all stardust, regardless of what kind of labels you want to give it. I mean, it's just quarks rearranged in a different time, different place, um, shaping up to a different reality, and then you get like a fractal understanding. And this is really where the creative parts of me come to life, where I look at those images, and I don't completely understand them. I will admit that right now, but I can see them, and I want to put them down so that I can show others and be like, "Have you seen this? Have you experienced this?" And depending on their answer, I can either write it off as me being delusional, because that's also part of reality, or I can be like, this might be a recurring pattern, and would it be something to investigate deeper? It's also part of the reason why like the paranormal and whatnot always excited me, but there's so little on it to understand, to really, research it. It's also one of those things where you have to accept that maybe in this world there are paranormal things. It's just that they elude science because they only happen once in a lifetime, and they're not supposed to be, how do I say, research. They're supposed to stay mystical. I mean, that's kind of the beauty of mystical and the human explanation, magic, drawing energy from different dimensions. Um, None
But
of
like
this has to be bad or accepted as like a heavy philosophy. It's just something to think about.
like what I thought about these things, I thought about like what is consciousness and like in the layer. that, let's say it's divided in many layers, like we don't know like how it exactly exists, but like in the one where we're in, we're supposed to use these rules in order to survive. And for instance, like like who says that, like we cannot be allowed to say that that thing does not exist, even if it could, like for instance, exist out there. We don't have a say in that. If it something wants to exist, it will exist. Like
It's
for instance,
oh,
we only
amoeba.
have
Oh,
like
okay.
there are like so many things that, but we still have to like be grounded in our dimension. Like
Our
there
tangible
could be like be,
reality.
yeah, in order
We're
to like
keeping
also
in mind.
solve certain problems that we might have at hand in here.
Yeah.
But like also like the
The,
whole thing with consciousness and stuff, because like I was thinking like how that exactly works. uh if we're like one connected consciousness or like different things, but we do end up seeing ourselves in other people. And like the whole thing that when you like some people like have the same dream but like from different perspectives, and how other people can sometimes come back like even after they passed away, but more as like a sign, but it's specifically meant for you in that sense.
so
Like what happens to like all of this whole thing with consciousness?
I mean, it's a very expansive
It's
topic, and
yeah,
it's definitely not something we're gonna figure out within a day or within this podcast. I
no,
regret to announce for all
but
you
like
watchers out there
it
who are like, "We're gonna
itself,
get the answer today." I'm sorry, it's a riddle, of which the answer is another riddle, of which the answer is another riddle. At which point it starts looking like fractals, and then fractals are like shapes in some rendition, and then those shapes start making objects, and those objects start interacting, and those interactions create reactions and results, and
because I was like
it keeps
also
going.
thinking like what if our ideas are just us intercepting in a different dimension where these things already exist, and we're like, oh, uh I'm just placing my mind into that universe and watching like the story happen, and then I'm like bringing it back to my dimension and put it down on paper and creating a show, and it could actually be real to some other creature that exists somewhere else. Like it was like a thing that was like proposed in like a Joe Rogan podcast with uh
Yeah.
he created Midnight Gospel, the dude,
Oh,
based off of
midnight.
his
Yeah,
other podcast. Yeah,
I hear. No, yeah.
Duncan
There's
Trussell, I
I
think.
don't know the name, but I do want to point out this because this is something I also again researched quite recently, and this is something that's been around since like 2018, no earlier I think. But do you know of Lisa's E8?
I heard about it, but I'm not sure what it actually was.
It's how do I say? It's a rendition or calculation, visualization of a part of reality, which I forgot how to explain it, but it also has to do kind of with like superpositioning and all these other elements, and it ties everything together. And I think it proves either quantum mechanics or string theory, or quantum loop mechanics or string theory. These things are very interesting, but so incredibly hard to understand, and you really need to have this mathematical brain to understand the structure. Like personally, I have a very good visual and audio brain. I can hear myself thinking or I can see my thoughts. But when it comes to math and such, I would love to get better. I just need a very good mentor or tutor. That's I need that because I cannot figure it out on my own. But the designs that they make, I mean, these are structural designs to kind of create like a handbook manual of how reality is composed, the metaphysics of what we see. Um, but to us mostly normal people, I assume we are normal people, it flies over our heads because it's
Like the
what?
average person.
Yes, the
The
average
average
person.
person doesn't think about this. The average person is
Well,
more
no,
concerned with
I disagree. I disagree on that. I
or
think the average
disagree.
person does think about these things. It's just the way we go about it afterwards. Because I
Like,
feel, and this is something I hadn't realized until one of my other friends pointed this out. Photos by Francis. He once mentioned to me that what people might have these thoughts, but after they have it, why not just dismiss it? Why
yeah,
go down the trail of trying to pursue that thing that you had this notion, but you're not going to get there somewhere. So why pursue it? And I think that's kind of what creates differences. And I hate saying average person, by the way, because I don't believe there is such a thing as an average person. It's
because like
something that
people try to look for like a one product that fits everyone, but that does not work. But they
it's not.
still try in like for certain reasons, like bookkeeping, like certain effects and such.
So, economical structures are not my favorite to talk about in this sense, but even more biological structures, I would think. Physiological means when we look at average people, what is an average person? We can say that the average weight of a person, the average height of a person, in that sense, we get the average functional or physiological person that we talk about. And to some degree, that works. But our human bodies are so unique in a sense. I mean, it's not like we're special little flowers all over the place. Sadly, not. But there's so much in physiology that can differ between you and your brother or your sister or your mother, even. And then there's the mental aspect. And like you mentioned, this is very hard to understand. And Carl Jung tried it, Sigmund Freud. There's still people, psychoanalysts, Jordan B. Peterson, so many people trying to understand it and say, this is the average person. But in the scientific world, there's also these methods that we need to use to make sure that there's no bias in our research. We need to make sure that there's so many conditions to be aware of. So we do get results from studies, but are they the results? Are they the right results? Are they results we want to see? These are questions that scientists ask themselves a lot of the time, and if they don't, then you probably should be very careful when reading what they wrote, because they might have alternative motives for having written what they wrote and researched what they did.
And this is
So,
also why stuff actually gets peer reviewed before it gets sent out. But like I'm not sure if you know this, but like you know how with like celebrities, like if you're like a fan of that celebrity, you're gonna like want to gear more towards that. You actually do have that in like the scientific world as well. If people like a person maybe because like their past research or such, then they could also have a bias towards that person.
yeah, that is also things to consider. Um, yes, I don't know what I want to say anymore because, yeah,
Oh,
there's just I've gone to
it's
this.
too much. It's too big.
In a way, it is, and that's why I have some drawings that I feel capture the essence of how I see or experience it. And this
Yes,
isn't the
let's.
style that I go about a lot now, but this is one of the first images that I drew that I felt like this is what reality is. This is who we are, and whether you want to see this as a single entity or all of us unified at some point, that's up to you. It's also why there's two creatures in this drawing. Yeah. Can I put the whole thing? Alright, so this is about the whole drawing. Yes. Yeah, this way.
Yo, I really like this
Yeah. I kind of played with all the
because like
senses. Yeah.
I also see like the tree,
Mm-hmm.
and I know like the background like makes me think of like when people take LSD or like something, and then they like see like that background,
Oh, definitely. I
like
would
in like
definitely
usually in
love to see
cartoons and
this.
such. Yeah,
I would
and
love
I
to see
see
this on some
another
letter paper.
creature flying above him. Is that a mosquito? Like wait, like a Batman person?
This is supposed to be like kind of a phoenix type of
Oh, a
rendition.
phoenix. Why did I say a Batman person?
That could have, perception. It's what you see, but hey,
Like
it's all welcome.
yeah,
Definitely
because like
nothing
I
wrong
thought it
with.
was like some dude in like a costume like Phoenix Man or something like that.
No, there's no costumes. I don't know if I want to say anything on this now. I guess I want to hold it up so that people can maybe pause at some point and be like, "Yo, what is everything that I see there?" and see
Okay,
clearly.
guys, just pause it on this image and then write in the comments what you think, and then after this we'll have like the explanation. Okay?
Yeah, if there is an
Yeah.
explanation, I still haven't made up my mind about that. And there's this other
Okay.
image that I drew a little bit later, or a lot later, I don't remember. It's actually still not really done, but it kind of captures that same type of essence, I think. Yeah. Can you see clearly?
Yo.
Just the reflections.
Yeah, I can still see it's like cool though. Like you can like zoom in on like certain parts if you like want to highlight them as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of like little allegories to, things that you can perceive from reality. The shoe with coins in them. There's a
Like
book.
what I see is like an eye. Like I also see like the eyes being used like in a lot of certain like types of imagery. I also like used it a lot. Like does it also have to like relate to like the senses, and
Exactly.
especially like eyes is like you see stuff like also symbolically,
Yeah. I mean, the eye is like, I don't know. It's something
as like
that's
perceiving a situation.
perceiving, but
Uh
it's just also so
yeah.
beautiful to just draw it. And when you get into the detail of it, it's a lot of fun to do. Sometimes it's really hard and you kind of lose the interest. But when you get it right, it just feels so satisfying to draw a good eye. That's my experience of it, at least. And it definitely has to do with like the visual, first of all, seeing, perceiving, and, just, yeah, the seeing, perceiving, being aware that something is there.
Mm.
It's I draw it quite a lot in a lot of my images because I actually don't know why. I'm comfortable with it somewhere, and sometimes I feel like I should stop drawing eyes just to make a different statement because otherwise everything kind of starts feeling like the same thing over and over again.
Yeah, that's
Um,
kind of like I'm trying to look like maybe trying to look through the PC screen because it's like a lot bigger than my phone screen because I like just the way the phone films. So if you like see me like looking off, I'm actually like looking at
that's fine. That's
it.
fine. They
Like I'm not sure if you've seen this image of mine. I'm gonna like pull it up real quick.
go right ahead.
A window, a tab, share. Yeah, this image because I like uh also added like a few things in here.
Hmm.
I added like a crescent moon, a few butterflies, this rosary bead thing with a uh like a sand timer, a black widow, this
Yeah,
creature especially, and the way things have grown on the creature and the roses.
I do like
And
what
I
you did
want
with the hourglass. It's uh, it's interesting.
like I'm gonna tell you now, like that's a thing that I'm probably gonna like keep using in more of like my artwork because it like has a certain like I don't know what kind of meaning I want to put towards it, but I already like I want to feel like I need to use it because like it has like a certain meaning, but I can't really say it in words.
I hear. Well, I always take things by what they represent. I like to keep things natural. If it's an hourglass, I wouldn't assign something like dreams to it directly. Hourglass for me is always representative of time, whereas an eye is always representative of vision. A cats are interesting because when with cats they're more dynamic. But what I have heard and what I also like agree on is that cats represent balance. They can represent what was the other word? The other thing, um, balance, protection in that sense. Also awareness, like sixth sense. Because the way cats perceive things, the way they act around things. So I don't know. I'm just like pointing out how I see things, and if there's anything allegorical within my paintings, it's always it should be right there. It's not something far away. But I do agree with the fact that sometimes it's nice to assign an object that people recognize as one thing and want to understand as one thing, and just take that away from them. Not being evil about it, but just take it away and be like, no, you don't quite get it. Like, you're almost there, but if you change your perception a little bit and have the hourglass represent a dream, because dreams also take a certain amount of time. They aren't endless or forever. You know, that
But
it
like,
changes the
here's
story.
also the thing. It's like an hourglass, but there's sand inside, and then you have like the Sandman, and the Sandman is the one who brings you the dreams.
Exactly. There you go. Sometimes you need to look a little deeper.
Yeah.
That's
So,
yeah.
like, what was your like initial like feeling or thought that you get from the image?
Which one? The one I'm looking at now
Yeah.
from you? I don't. Honestly, I like looking at art more in real life, because then I can actually, like, how I say, clearly see it and the full picture. Because now it's one way or another, the top or bottom gets cut off.
Yeah.
Um, I love the colors though. They speak to me. I just kind of like, I'm a bit like sad that there's still like white behind them, but at the same time, it works to help visualize the picture better. Like, you can see it more clearly.
Because
Um,
like I was trying to digitalize it like in my digital app for drawing. I wanted to like change like make certain things like a lot easier to like see because the
yes, I
whole
hear you.
white around it, that was actually supposed to be like it actually like glowing, and I couldn't get the effect right, but it did come out like as the thing I envisioned.
That's as an artist, that's you know like, let me just say, the orgasm of the day. When you get what you envision, that's it. If you don't, it's
Yes.
like, ah. Then you gotta, that's also why I put off some of my art for a long time, is because, like, it goes wrong. Maybe a stroke goes too far left, or the color goes over into another one. It's just like, you know what, tomorrow again. It's not for today anymore. One thing I did want to mention, and this is also why I don't want to say too much about what you just showed me, because I saw the hourglass and I couldn't quite see if there was still sand in the top part, because the bottom part looked completely
Oh,
topped off. And
yeah. There
to,
there was still a bottom part, like the thing is completely closed, but like the top part had less sand in it. Like it was running out. But it's
true,
still there. It's still there. It's still in like uh its container.
but
It's
also,
not
like,
getting out.
the way I kind of saw that, I couldn't clearly see it, but at the same time I also saw that there wasn't any more space for the sand to run into anymore. Like, from the color that I did see, I saw that the bottom part was like all yellow. So it kind of made me wonder, like, could that allude to there being there was butterflies and spiders, and let me get to that in a sec. But could your the meaning of the hourglass, the fact that it's too full for it to completely empty to one end, is that maybe saying that either you spend too much time on something, or maybe not even you, but in that mindset, um,
Yes, it
there,
actually does
or
because for certain, but this is also like a dangerous thing when, especially when I'm doing like something with art or something that I'm passionate about or something that I feel that has to be finished. I I spent a lot of time on it, but I also lose myself in it and forget that I have appointments, I have other things that also need to be getting done, but uh and then after completely forgotten about it, I'm like, where did the time go? Like, what happened? I feel like, where the hell am I? It's like waking up from a dream as well because you're putting yourself like in a certain state of concentrations, and once you come out of that, you're like, what the hell was that?
that. And then I also noticed, like, again, there's the two butterflies, which are more on the front side of the skeleton. Butterflies, I always
Oh,
perceive
one
them
is a
as.
moth, actually. One
Oh,
is a moth.
okay,
Like the one on his nose is like a moth, and the other one is, I'm not sure if that one's a moth as well, but like it was based off of like the butterfly. I don't think it's a moth, but it was based off the butterfly in Suriname that's like has the blue on the inside and like the brown on the outside or something like that.
okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I don't know. Like again, I really would need to see it in person, and then I could say a lot more because I like it. It's very detailed, and there's a lot of, you know, how do I say, elements to the story that when you observe the whole thing in front of you, you can really map out the story or just enjoy the image what you see. And
Because like in my mind, I imagine it more as like an animation rather than just the art piece itself.
I
I
hear that one.
imagine just the character appearing and finding itself, like not knowing where it is, but covered in like the flowers and but like they're closed at that point. But like he's like just glowing a bit, and then he finds these creatures and the hourglass, and he starts glowing a lot more. But then you see the spider, and like the whole thing with like the spider, because like it's specifically a black widow,
Mhm.
and that
It's
also has like certain meanings attached to it as well.
true. It's
But
also
like,
like one of the
yeah.
things that I kind of also notice is there's also specific placings like putting the spider behind it is different than putting the spider in
Yes.
front of it, and but it's a really cool drawing, and I
If it,
definitely if I go to Holland again, we're gonna meet up, and I want you to show me that drawing because we can talk about it in a lot more
but like
detail.
here's the thing, the drawing is in Suriname.
Oh, okay.
The drawing is closer to you, but like I can like just send you like the digital version where you can like see the whole thing fully.
All right. Yeah, I would appreciate that. That'd be cool.
Yeah.
Should I show you another one of my pieces? This
Yes.
one, I
Yes.
feel like this one is good to show now, right after the other things that I just showed you. Also, because this one transitions more into like what I currently do. Um, from the other two that I don't really want to assign a meaning because they're just so all over the place. This one definitely does have a bit more meaning.
Yeah, because like here I also see like an eye and like the half moon, and also the, is that like a halo around the character, and like the character kind of looks like it's wearing a dress, and there's like a brick wall, and
Yes.
the Ankh symbol as I see there, and it's, and somebody has like a vergrootglas, I forgot what it's called in English, uh and he's pointing it at his head and like trying to let his head, I'm not sure if it's like catching on fire or he's like trying to project something through it.
Well, for me, this one is like I don't know. There's the first of all, it's nighttime. That's what it's supposed to be, or at least there's a setting sun because there's still light in the background. So there's a change happening, and this is something I actually drew at night in a very how should I say? It was a peculiar circumstance of events to be in. Long story. I don't really want to share it because it involves people and things, and just so I just spend my time drawing to ignore those
Yes.
things. But it was a good night overall. We had fun. Um, but yeah, there's this wall that's separating this creature from the one in the background, and the one in the background is actually wearing like blinds or sunglasses, and they're using a how do you say
I thought it was like
flip
the mask
bus.
that you have, kind of like, but like a black version of the mask.
Oh no, no, this is supposed to be like definitely just sunglasses or something covering their eyes. It could be a mask, but I don't think it should be.
Or a blindfold. Okay.
Yes, exactly, blindfold or sunglasses. And then they're using a looking glass to observe the general religious symbol. I don't necessarily designate this one, although I do find it more in line with the Neo-Abrahamic religions, because I feel like the older religions would be deserving of a different sign as they are more spiritual almost.
Like
Um,
more pagan related.
I don't know. Let me not go too deep in this because that's
Yeah.
not the dissection of it.
No.
It's more about the fact that they're on one side. There's this creature who's enjoying themselves. I mean, you can definitely see like the tongue, their expression on the face. It's they're feeling themselves, even though they look
Hmm.
horrible. They're like drooping all over the place, and their eyes have already drooped down to their shoulder and their forearm. Um, so there's a certain sense of, I suppose, debauchery or depravity going on within that creature, but they are separated from a small little wall that's separating them from the creature behind them, who is like kind of observing religion or ideas greater than themselves. They it's almost like that creature in the background needs an idea a bit larger than themselves to hold on to, but the more they examine it, it's like overheating their mind, and in that sense, like they're using that looking glass, but it's burning their sight, their vision. Whereas the creature on the other side is just, you know, even looking at, they're going for.
Dude, you're breaking up. I'm sorry. Like the connection is trying to cut you off. Like, I think give it a little second and it will probably readjust. I'm sorry, but like this is like some like the issues with like the digital podcasting.
This same thing, this street program, cell phone, because it's happening to.
I think we need to like give it a few seconds to restart. Not restart, but like clear up. I think is it raining there? Oh, the little clay guy that you made. Dude, I'm sorry, but like I can't hear a thing you're saying. Wait, let me get you out of the chat and chat out of the video and then back into the video for a few seconds. See if it works again. Oh no. Oh no, you're just stuck like that. Do you think you can like reset it a bit?
That's
Like because I can't understand you at all. No, not I can't uh like the image is just stuck. Oh my goodness, when I end up editing these, this is just probably like gonna be like a chunk. Oh my goodness. Damn you, poor connection. And I think we lost them, folks. Send me a message if you see something improve. Oh my goodness. I can sort of hear you, but it's like all glitching out. No. Oh no. Like I also have like this issue when I'm like calling with people from Suriname and they're like stuck. So he's refreshing the page. We'll see where this goes. Like we're just having such a good conversation, and then like the the connection decided like, well, I have to end this because I decided to. Like, bruh. I can barely like because like I'm busy with like school and stuff. I don't always have time to like do like the podcast. It's like sad like if I get to do it and then like some like technical difficulties are just like I'm gonna murder your ass. Like, come on, dude. Because like you're also like going into like somebody's time and you're like asking them to like borrow like some time and this is probably like a place to like give them like a good experience, a good talk to have because yeah, it's something we enjoy doing, but also that we can probably also learn from. But itself, it's like you cannot get this time back though. Like once you move forward, like there's actually no concept of time. We just based it all around like rotations around the sun and us aging. Like with every rotation, like we see it like as a thing to continue growing, I guess. So like animals, they have like different time sets, I think. And the other things mature a lot faster, but like also for different reasons too. I hope he's able to come back. Does anybody like want to like ask questions in the meantime? Okay, we do not have to see you per se, but if we can hear you, it's good. Then I
I mean, I'd love to be sharing some more images. I'm happy that I got to show you all my little creature because, as you can see now, my profile picture is the same creature. It's just a bit larger. I hope
I'm
you
going to scream if
can
like everything
recognize
like shuts
that.
down again.
It's in a door. And correct me if I'm wrong, but like maybe, just perhaps, we shared a bit too much creativity, enough to give the suggestion to these programs on which we are running that it should become self-aware, and
Oh
maybe it's
yes,
just doing
teaching
that.
AI. Oh, what the?
Exactly.
Oh, bruh. Like that's like also like a thing because like they had like the two robots like talking. I'm not sure if you saw that video, and they were like talking about like world domination.
Oh
I was
yeah.
like, oh my gosh, like we're destroying ourselves every
Well,
time
I
by
mean,
accident or leading to our own
well, no, I don't
destruction.
think that will do it. Eh,
Okay, but like now
you
I'm thinking
know,
of like something called
that's such as life, or part
Roku's
of it, I guess.
basilisk. Have you heard of Roku's
That's on
basilisk?
my Instagram. My
What?
Instagram message literally starts with like my introductory message or biography on Instagram is messages from the mothership Roku's basilisk, and it's also why my name is Digital AI. It is any AI is digital. That's just the
Yeah,
way it works. You cannot have, well, you can have analog AI, I guess, but that's a lot more complicated. That's what we are, I think.
perhaps. But like we still work with electrical like impulses and shit moving through our brain. So
Well, it's
it's
part of physics.
partially
I mean,
true, partially not.
in that way,
Yeah,
like,
physics.
I mean, yeah, you just have to accept that, you can power something with water, you can power it with air, with fire, or electricity. That's all of these create energy, and
Do you think the
it
camera
doesn't
can be turned
matter
back on?
the source. I suppose I would like to try it. It's working.
No. I have
Let me
to.
go back.
Yeah, that we just keep this basically. Um. Yeah.
Yes. Well, this kind of defeats the purpose for me showing my art, because there's still tons to show
Yeah,
you. I mean,
kind of like
I kind of showed you
defeats the
in
purpose,
first.
you can still. Oh shit!
Let me
You can
just.
still talk. But I'm sorry.
There's.
Like I saw the battery running low, and I was like,
I hear you. Let me just like. There's tons I want to show you
technical
guys. It's like
difficulties
all here,
galore.
but yes, it's just the way. Again, I swear it's something that has been happening to you since the beginning of today, like you mentioned, and now it's like just reaching its next level as we started talking. So, have you been tampering with the networks of reality?
I both enjoy that, but also find it very creepy because like I'm thinking of like stuff like from "Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared," and like something that I might tell you privately that I'm also like into having to do with like spiritual stuff that might possibly be also affecting some of like the stuff that I'm not sure about. Blah blah blah. I'm not gonna reveal too much. Just food for thought.
I don't. That's a very unreassuring thoughts to deal with. I mean, okay. I just want to say this. Anything you practice spiritually, as long as it brings positivity into your life and doesn't harm others, be my guest. There's nothing wrong with
Oh
that.
yeah, that's what it is more
As long as yeah. So, but there's um, nothing I think from the mystical that can or will harm you by the doing of others. Um, to some degree, like I don't know,
But like
I have
here's the
a
thing
this is a whole
though
other
because
topic.
from what I've like seen from like some of the spiritual stuff that people have written from like certain religions and stuff as well, they're like going towards like helping people to like go to like building up like good karma, and for like certain like the certain cycle, because if you like get like creating like other bad things end up also affecting you negatively throughout your life, like it comes back in a weird way, but for some reason it still follows you. But like
I
you
have
also have like
very
this thing that's like how they explain it like in Star Wars, how you have like Darth Vader and Luke, but then it like switched again. Like how, let's say, if you continue on, like sometimes stuff will switch as well to keep a certain balance. And I think
I,
this is a part of, I don't know, balancing something. I'm not sure.
so what I can say with the utmost certainty, shitty things will always happen. This
Yeah,
is the life.
regardless of the meaning behind it or something.
Exactly. The causal world has no care for you as an individual. Again, it is fact, and fact is without emotion. So if your house burns down, the fact may sometimes be it was a stupid mistake because you left the oven on or a hair straightener somewhere in the corner, or someone burned it down, or there's so many reasons it can happen. But the truth is not to get caught up in that fact. It is to keep moving forward. And all you can do in your life is be happy. You need to supply your own happiness by whatever means that may be. When you said in the beginning of this topic, of this podcast, morality is subjective, there is truth to that. However, we can all agree that murder should generally always be frowned upon. And I don't want to go too much into the details because it's a very long topic, but
It is,
it's
yeah,
more
it
to point
like
out.
becomes the thing actually. Like, if you like tell like a group of people these are, you alienate a different group of people and you say these are the bad guys, these we're supposed to take them out immediately. Like there was like a Black Mirror episode even about it. Um, then people are gonna see that their murder as justifiable.
I don't know about that. Again, I don't want to go into the detail. It's more what I'm trying to point out, that there are limits to which we can say, and I think this, again, I don't like talking about the average person or saying things can be normal, as a lot of things have a way of lying beyond the normal nominal line, and sometimes under it. But within the nominal barrier, we can generally definitely agree that there is reason to adhere to a good and a bad, and we can all reason it pretty simply down to what is bad and what is good. It's quite instinctive, actually. Um, we are impulsive as humans, and for most of our childhoods through our adolescence, we will remain that way. But after 25, again, generally speaking, and again, I hate saying this, but after 25, we definitely have, we generally definitely should have the cognitive function of being able to reason our actions.
Indeed.
And now I'm just going to throw you off with this one. We are all our own gods. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I just wanted to say that, I
Like,
guess, because
it
out of
is,
everything
but
I just said with
the,
the
the thing
causal,
with this is people are gonna think like it of it as like a religious thing, but it's not really in that sense per se. Like
no,
we make our own world in a sense.
what does religion or religious mean? I think, and this does take away, I guess, from the Merriam-Webster dictionary. Like, I brush my teeth religiously every morning. or I religiously brush my teeth every morning. It's something that I do, um, not just because I believe that it's good for me, um, also because I know it's good for me, and it's something that has a certain tradition, and in that sense, I carry out the meaning of religion. It's not the exact meaning, but it's more to say that it's a touchy subject, and it's one of those things that I love to talk about, but I'm restricted in talking about because people tend to get offended, and that's not where we want to go with this. Um,
Because they
and
might get wrong ideas. So I was kind of like trying to like I want to talk about this, but like for the sake of certain things, like because you have to also keep in mind like wording as well. Like I might be able to like understand what you're saying, but like somebody else who hasn't heard about these topics, like this is probably like completely new to them, and they could be like uh just like sticking to like something you said and just be like basing like their bias or prejudice or like their certain idea that they already have, like their misconception on that already, and just be like, okay, well, I'm not gonna like listen to you anymore because you said something like this, but they didn't really like listen what you said to what you said, but they were like, oh, you said for instance like you are your own god, but they're like gonna be like, oh my god, what is like going on with like that shit, and they're not really like gonna understand like what you're actually gonna go with there. That's why I'm kind of like a bit iffy with some of like those things, because I like if you're just gonna like talk with me, like you come to the Netherlands someday and we're like gonna talk, like we can talk about this stuff for hours. We're probably like gonna like have like a set time from 6 to 10 just talking about this stuff, but like
definitely,
as like a perspective, like like how
let
it
me
might go.
let me just say this then. Um, there's let me see, is it three or four? Let's There's about four topics which will always be hard to discuss with other people, just because there's always a side that is taboo about it. These topics are very simply summarized in politics, religion, sex. Actually, it's three. It's those three. That's all. That's all there is. That there will always be someone. But then it draws back, and I kind of feel like I want to end on this because we have, I think, met our time, and I feel like we should continue in another session or podcast where I can show some more of my paint, because like my paintings and my art. Because
Because like even though I want to like continue talking about this, because
I feel you, but it's I must say I do have some other things now that I also need to do.
and as well me too, because like I
I
also
can
got
imagine.
coming up. So perhaps like after 2 weeks we can like set like another date or like for a podcast, because like I just like having you and like the others on as well, like as like recurring people, because there's like not enough time to talk about this stuff, but like in some future when I'm like editing these things, to keep it like more consistent, I guess, like from different videos, I'm gonna like put it in one, like depending on the topic. So
Let me talk to you about some of these ideas that I just came up with right now, after we've closed this off. And if I may end on this note, and then if you would are willing to say the closing lines after this, from everything that I have talked about today and what I just said, the things we cannot talk about, I would like the listeners to think about just this. And this is something we mentioned quite in the beginning. I think you can meet it at the 30-minute mark if you want to go back. Um, what is the cosmic joke? Thank you.
okay, guys, that was Digital AI, aka Hey Jude, and we will continue on this topic, because like this thing just like makes me like so excited, because like I also found someone that like kind of like has thought about the things that I also talk about, because as we said before, the average person thinks about it, but they just might dismiss it and not go in deeper, or sometimes do. So even though we don't really like using those terms because the wording and such, but either way, we shall continue on this. So thank you guys for watching. At this time, have a nice night, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Thank you very much for watching. And don't forget, when commenting down below, keep it civil. And goodbye, everybody. Have a nice day.
Ciao.